Hello and welcome to the John Ark Show. Today we're going to welcome back one of the greatest Wall Street investors of all time, the legendary Jim Rogers. Jim's success has been nothing less than historic. He was the co-founder of the Quantum Fund and Soros Fund Management. He also routinely appears on CNBC and other news outlets to give his analysis of the business world and the stock market. Now, let's say hello to Jim Rogers. Hello, Jim. Welcome to the John Ark Show. How are you today, sir?
I am delighted to be here, John. You know, so far, so good.
Okay. So it's been about a year since we've spoken, and since then, the marketplace and the world have become much more challenging for people. We have war in Ukraine. We have record-breaking inflation. We have gas prices that are going up almost hourly. We have a mass exodus of Americans leaving one state and going to another to escape crime and high taxes. Jim, how do you navigate all of these challenges when you're looking for new investment opportunities?
What's the John Ark Show? How do you do it?
That is the most perfect answer, Jim. Right there. There's no.
How do you do it? How does everybody do it?
Well, we listen to geniuses like you, Jim.
Well, I hope I can learn from you as well. Well, I read as much as I can. You know, I try to get as many sources of information as I can. I have a couple of children and I teach them. You must always get you get information from many sources and many countries because everybody thinks they're right, but they cannot all be right. If you listen to 5 countries, every one of them will say, well, this is the truth. This is the way it is. But they cannot all be true. Russia, China, America, Brazil, you know, Germany, they can not all have the right answer. So you have to get many sources and figure it out for yourself.
So do you watch news shows from various countries and continents online or on cable? Is that it?
Well, we don't have a TV, so yeah, I watch a lot of stuff online.
Interesting.
And my children watch a lot of stuff online. I thought I was smart not having a TV. My children are smarter than I am. They can watch anything they want anywhere in the world, and they do.
God bless the internet. So let's talk about inflation. Given all the money that they've printed in the past, do you believe that they'll want to keep printing more money after the midterm elections and that will drive inflation even further?
Oh, no. What will happen is somewhere along the line, the market's going to start going down again. First, it's going to go up. Then it'll start going down. They will panic. You have to remember, John, these guys are bureaucrats. They're academics. They don't know what they're doing. They will panic and they will print a lot more money. We'll have one last big rally, and that will probably be it. They will keep printing because they don't know anything else to do, which just means inflation is going to be worse and worse, which means the next bear market is going to be a very bad bear market.
You know, historically, when an invading army attacked, one of the first things they would do would be to loot the treasury of the nation they occupied. Doesn't this endless money printing feel a little like a very clever way to loot the treasury?
Who's our treasury?
Our treasury.
I'm an American citizen like you. They're looting our treasury.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, the people in Washington, the bureaucrats in Washington are
Exactly.
looting your treasury, my treasury, and my goodness, our children and grandchildren's treasury. You know, John, it's a very good time to be an old American. It's not a good time to be a young American. My children are going to have such gigantic problems that they're going to inherit. I'm not going to pay the debts, but my children are going to have to pay all these debts.
So as we speak, gas prices are at about $4.50 to $6 per gallon, depending on what state. And at what price do you believe rising gas prices will cripple the economy and make a quick recovery extremely unlikely?
Look out the window. That's the price. But whatever the price is now, these are crippling prices already. Fortunately or unfortunately, the government's going to print, has printed, will print a lot of money and spend a lot of money and borrow a lot of money. This is not good. But this is what the politicians think should do, and they will. No, we're going to have serious economic problems. John, you remember 2008. We had a horrible problem because of too much debt. John, the debt since 2008 has skyrocketed everywhere, especially in America. I mean, this is unbelievable amounts of debt that have been added all over the world. So we're going to have a very bad problem the next time we have a problem.
I remember going to, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to quickly say, but in Washington, they say, don't worry, we're not going to have any more economic problems. We've solved all the economic problems.
I remember in 2008 going to foreclosure auctions in the Midwest and seeing enormous mansions sell for 20 cents on the dollar. It was unbelievable. So the Russian invasion of Ukraine will either get worse or get better. If the rest of the world keeps buying Russian oil, do you believe that the other non-oil revenue-based economic sanctions can still force Putin to halt his aggression? Is that enough?
Well, the world doesn't have much choice but to continue to buy energy from somewhere. And since the Russians are the largest or among the largest sellers of energy, somebody's going to buy their energy. Maybe the U.S. is not, but somebody else will. And then, you know, oil is fungible. It's the same thing, just about the same, no matter where it is. So you and I may not buy Russian oil, but somebody else is, and we will buy more Texas oil or whatever it happens to be. No, this is going to continue. We can scream about the Russians all day long, but I don't think stopping to buy. I know that halting the purchases of Russian oil by the U.S. is not going to do much at all.
Right, right. So there appeared to be growing evidence that the Chinese and the Russians want to eliminate the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. Do you think they'll succeed? And if so, what does the U.S. economy look like when its currency is no longer the worldwide reserve currency?
Washington, D.C. is forcing that to happen. You know, the international medium of exchange is supposed to be neutral. Anybody can use it for anything they want. You can buy drugs, pay your girlfriend, buy a car, whatever you want, anybody, anywhere in the world. But now, Washington is changing the rules, and if they don't like you, they will put sanctions on you and say you cannot use the dollar. Well, needless to say, John, now everybody, including our friends, are saying, wait a minute, that's not the way it's supposed to work. We've got to find something new. There are countries already working on finding something to compete with the US dollar, and this just accelerates it. Do I like it? Of course I don't like it. I'm an American. But if I were any country in the world, including a friend of the US, I would say, wait a minute, guys, we got to prepare, because if somebody gets angry, we're stuck.
You know, as China sits back and watches how badly the worldwide economic sanctions are hitting Russia, do you believe that China may step back and become less likely to invade Taiwan because of what they see going on?
I don't think that would change it, but yeah, they see the crippling sanctions that are happening, but Russia is still surviving. I mean, not surviving greatly, but I think that if China and Russia had to rely on each other, they could, and there are other countries that would help both of them. You know, India seems to be helping Russia at the moment. Certainly Iran would help. Brazil and other countries are certainly seem to be a little more neutral. So I don't think that in and of itself would stop China invading Taiwan. I mean, I hope they don't. I don't see how it does any good. China's been around a long time. If I were the Chinese, I'd say, we'll just wait. Don't worry. Someday, some decade, we'll be one country again. I wouldn't push it, but I'm not China, so they'll do it their way.
A lot of ultra high net worth individuals like Elon Musk and others are selling off their real estate. What do you think real estate will do over the next year?
Well, I think it's probably a good time to sell real estate. It is a bubble in many countries because of interest rates. Interest rates are definitely going high. First of all, you have bubble prices. Second, you're going to have interest rates go higher. So no, it's probably a good time to sell interest rates, sell property, but it depends on what property and where.
Right. So I know that you like to trade stocks, but given all that's going on, have you thought more about exiting paper assets and instead purchasing more physical gold or silver, or are we not at that point yet?
Well, I own gold and silver. I always own some gold and silver, have for decades. I will buy more if it gets cheaper. It's not cheap enough for me right now, but who knows? I don't know how to time markets. No, I will definitely continue to buy gold and silver. John, all of us old peasants know that when something goes wrong, we better have some gold in the closet. We better have some silver under the bed. I got my gold and silver, and I'll get more.
Jim, do you believe the stock market is going to collapse soon, perhaps in the next year or two? Is that on your radar?
Well, starting in the next couple of years, we will have a very serious bear market. The American stock market has been rising since 2009. That's the longest in American history. Doesn't mean it can't go on another 20 years just because it's the longest so far, but it is overdue. Problems are developing, interest rates, inflation, problems are coming, and that usually leads to a bear market eventually, especially when the market is very, very expensive as it is now.
Bill Gates and other ultra-wealthy individuals are buying up farmland that possesses water rights because they see it as an asset that will appreciate dramatically in the coming years. How do you feel about land as an asset class or an investment?
By agricultural land, I'm extremely optimistic about agricultural land in many countries in the world, including the U.S. So yeah, no, it's a good move. Agricultural land has not been booming for a long time. It's a great idea. There may be better places than the U.S., but the U.S. is fine.
When you watch the massive swings in the stock market lately, do these movements appear to be organic to you, or do they seem to be highly manipulated?
I wish I knew how to manipulate the stock market. If you know a way, tell me. People have been making those accusations for decades. Some do try to manipulate markets. They never get away with it, and it's not a very good way to make a living. Maybe somebody's manipulating the market, John. If so, I don't know who they are, and they're smarter than I am.
So you now live in Singapore. You've been there for a while. What's happening to the real estate market in Singapore?
Well, most Asian property markets are going up and have been, especially Singapore now. A lot of people are fleeing Hong Kong. There are problems in Hong Kong, and Singapore is the next logical place. So a lot of Chinese are coming to Singapore because it's perfect alternative as far as they're concerned. So I didn't come here for that reason, but it's happening. I can see it happening.
Yeah. So Taiwan is about 1,900 miles from Singapore. If China invaded in the next year or two, how do you think the people and the government would react? Do you think people would start renewing their American passports, or do they not really care at this point?
Well, most of the people who live in Singapore don't have American passports. Most of the people who live in Singapore have Singapore passports. I have an American passport, obviously, and my family. But most people here have Singapore passports, and I don't know if they would flee. A problem, John, is that the port of Singapore is the most important port in the world. It is the busiest. Look at a map and you'll see why. It's the busiest port in the world, especially if there's a war in Asia. And everybody will want this port if there's a war.
Lately, China has made it much harder for people to move their money out of the country. The capital controls they have been imposing are constantly being increased and tightened to prevent people from moving their money. Do you think we now live in an era where it may be unwise to keep all your capital in one country, regardless of where you live?
As far as I'm concerned, that has always been an unwise thing to do. You should always have a plan B. You never know. History is so full of examples where you should have a plan B. So everybody, even if you're living in St. Louis, should have a plan B.
So when you sit down at your computer and you're looking for opportunities, what are you focusing on these days? Is it individual asset classes? Is it something new and different? What's catching your attention?
Well, I'm always looking for something new and different or a new asset class. I hope I'm not hidebound. I hope if something comes up, as I look at the world right now, the cheapest asset class are commodities. I mean, property is developing bubbles in many places. Stocks are developing bubbles in many places. Bonds are certainly a bubble. Bonds have never been this expensive in the history of the world, all over the world. John, silver's down 50% from its all-time high. That's not a bubble. Sugar's down 60% from its all-time high. That's not a bubble. The only things that are still cheap are commodities, real assets.
Have you ever thought about creating a Twitter or Facebook account where you could tell the public about your latest trades right after you've made them so that other people can make a few bucks?
I have not thought about, well, I guess I have thought about it, but it took about 30 seconds for me to think about it and say, I'm not going to do that.
So when you look back on your investing career, when have you made the most money? Was it when the economy was great, or was it during very difficult times? And if so, what did you invest in during those difficult times to profit most?
Well, I made the most money when I got it right. I didn't think about it. You know, the 70s made a huge amount of money. Commodities bull market made a huge amount of money. No, I've gotten a few things right in my investing career. I don't remember when the big moves were, but I have had more than one. But John, I've also made many mistakes. Don't worry.
Really?
We do a whole show about my mistake. You want to hear about my first wife? Yeah. Oh my gosh, what a mistake that was. Oh,
you know, that joke never gets old, Jim. I love that joke. So what asset classes do you think are most capable of withstanding the challenges that are coming? Are there certain stocks that you think are more resistant to the tsunami that's coming?
No, as I said, commodities are the cheapest asset class. If you don't know how to buy cotton, you can buy an index. Index investing is very easy these days. There are plenty of ETFs that people can invest in. If you know the great stock, you should buy it. I don't happen to know a great stock right now. The best place for me to look are in commodities because they're still cheap. And John, there are many changes taking place. A lot of people are buying electric car stocks, for instance, and they're skyrocketing. But if we're going to have electric cars, John, an electric car uses 4 times as much copper as a gasoline car. So copper would be a huge way to play gasoline cars because nobody's been opening copper mines or lead mines. I mean, all of these changes that are taking place also cause changes in markets.
So after the war in Ukraine is settled one way or another, do you believe that investors will flock back to Ukraine looking for opportunities, or are they going to be a little shy for a while?
They always, well, first of all, there's a bit of a shock period, but they always flee back. And I've been investing a long time, and I have learned if you go to a place after a war or a civil war, you're probably going to make a lot of money because things are cheap. There's not much energy, not much interest in anything. And there are always great opportunities if you go to a place after or right at the end of a war or a civil war. So I know I will be looking. I hope you aren't. I hope nobody else is, but I will be looking.
Well, you actually went back to Ukraine, to Russia years ago, didn't you? Looking for opportunities.
Yeah, I have investments in Russia. Yes.
Yeah, interesting. So we just heard a report that says that the Italians have seized Putin's $700 million, 460-foot super yacht in a marina in Italy. What do you think the market thinks about that? Do you think that they see that as a viable deterrent to Putin, or does Putin not care and the market doesn't care?
I'm sure Mr. Putin, if he knows about it, doesn't care too much because Mr. Putin knows he can get another one. I mean, what do I think about it? I think confiscation of people's assets has never been justified. But, you know, they say there's war going on, so it's justified. Not in my book, but...
Now, you're one of the best traders in the world, and tell us a little bit about the mechanics of how you do what you do. For example, do you trade on E-Trade or TD Ameritrade or Robinhood, or do you use some other mechanism to affect your trades?
Well, you say trade. I don't really trade a lot. I invest. I jump in. I know a lot of very successful people who jump in and out constantly. I am not one of those people. If you're my broker, John, you're not going to like me at all because I'm not a good customer. But I do invest, or I may invest in something and own it for 10 years. I don't jump in and out, and I will wait and wait and wait often before I make any investments at all. I wait until I like to wait until, John, I see money. I see some money over there in the corner. I find something that's so obvious. All I have to do is do a little more research and then buy it.
So after the war, do you think investors will find more opportunity in Russia or Ukraine?
Russia.
Russia?
Russia is a much bigger country, much more viable country, less badly managed country. Ukraine has been a terribly managed country for decades, centuries. Not that Russia has been great. No, do not get me wrong. I'm just saying that Russia is less bad than Ukraine for future investment.
So our sources keep telling us that they believe they're going to lock down the economy worldwide again after the midterm elections. Do you think the economy and that businesses can survive another massive lockdown?
No, a lot of people go bankrupt. A lot of individuals and a lot of businesses will go bankrupt if they do that again. In my view, that's not the way to do it. We've been having epidemics for centuries. Never before, John, did they close McDonald's during an epidemic. This is the first time they've done something like that, which is a mistake in my view, but we'll know in 4 or 5 years. If they do it, more people are going to go bankrupt.
You know that Russia comprises 9% of McDonald's market share. When they shut all those McDonald's in Russia down, 9% of their market share disappeared. It's amazing.
No, I know. It's just gigantic numbers of McDonald's in Russia. I don't go to them, but I know they're there.
Jim, how bad would things have to get for you to sell off all your stocks and commodities?
Well, the question would be, how good would they have to be? Because if things are terribly bad, I hope I don't sell at the bottom. I hope I have enough sense to realize, they're not going to get much worse. If things get really, really good, then I'll have to sell everything. If prices go higher and higher and higher, then obviously you're supposed to buy low and sell high. I hope I would be smart enough to get out.
Which countries do you think are going to be safest and most financially stable going forward?
No such thing as safe when you're talking about investing, John. That word should not be in your vocabulary, talking about investing. Nothing is safe. I don't know. Let's see. Well, Russia, if the war is ever over. I said to you before, after a war, it's usually a good time to invest. Where else? China, the Chinese market has been down, probably will be down. If they go to war, it'll be down more. These are places that have not been exploited recently. In fact, they've been beaten down recently. So I like to buy low, and I would go to the places that are suffering.
Do you have any friends living in Hong Kong now that the Chinese have taken over? And if so, what are their thoughts about what's going on over there?
Well, some of them have moved. I do have friends who lived in Hong Kong. Some have moved. I know people have moved from Hong Kong to Singapore, partly because they just find the situation too unstable. Most of them are not necessarily worried, but they just find it unstable. It's harder to get employees. It's harder to do anything. And so they are moving away and looking to move away. I don't know anybody who's been threatened or suffered because of what's been going on, but they do find it destabilizing.
That's interesting. Do you think that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are still too uncertain as an asset in your eyes?
Well, I'm not investing in them, but who knows, John? I made many mistakes, as we both know. My view, and I know people who trade them and make a lot of money trading them, but also, John, as you know, many of them have already disappeared. We don't hear too much about the ones that went to zero, but they have. Every country, including the US, is working on putting its money on the computer. Soon all money will be on the computer. In my view, when that happens, and by the way, it's already happened in China. You can't take a taxi in China with money, Chinese money. You can't buy an ice cream with money. You have to have your money on the computer. In my view, when the US says, okay, this is now your money, but if you want to use their money, you can use their money too. It's not the way the US works. It's not the way bureaucrats anywhere, politicians work. They like monopoly and they like control.
How long do you think it'll be before the U.S. completely transfers over to digital money?
Well, it won't. It takes a long time, especially for the bureaucracy. I'd say 5 years. But I mean, I haven't thought about that. That's just a wild guess to answer your question.
So before we wrap things up, Jim, is there anything you would like to promote?
No, I don't. I mean, the John Ark show, I guess I could promote that. I don't have anything to sell. No, I'm just a simple person.
So, Jim, as always, it's been a great pleasure having you on the show. You're the voice of reason and the voice of honesty, and we need more of that in the investment world, the political world, everywhere these days. I want to wish you all the best going forward, and you are always welcome back on the show, my friend.
I would be delighted. It's always been fun. It's been great fun. So let's, after some time passes, if we're both still solvent, let's do it again.
All right. Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you, John.
Bye-bye.
Good luck. Bye-bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that show as much as we did. I want to thank our viewers for watching and tell you that we're going to have more great celebrity interviews coming up and more breaking news stories in the future. So we encourage you to subscribe to our channel and click on that notification bell so you can get notified every time we post a new story. Also, make sure you post a link to today's show on all your social media to help spread the word. Thank you, and we shall talk to you soon. Bye-bye.